Welcome to the Bill Kelly Podcast, critical discussions in critical times. Here's your host, Bill Kelly.
Hey, welcome to a special edition of the Bill Kelly Podcast. This is our live stream in honor of, well, a couple of different things that I want to get into. First of all, a great big thank you to the many subscribers. And we talk about that during all the podcasts, of course. But we hit, kind of a watermark, an impressive watermark, 40,000 subscriptions on YouTube. And we thank you for that. We've talked about this on the last couple of podcasts. It's quite a threshold for us. We've been puttering around doing this in various forms for a little while, but it's only been about the last 6-7 months, I guess, that we've kind of defined ourselves that this is what we're going to talk about. These are going to be the parameters for it. And you have responded beautifully to it. And it's so wonderful to see that sort of a response to the podcast. And we do thank you for that. 40,000 subscriptions on YouTube and impressive numbers on some of the other platforms too. But we're really happy about what's happening there. My producer, Madeline, wants us to hit 50,000 by the end of the year. Well, that'll be up to people that are watching and listening to the podcast, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, growth is always good, and we do appreciate everything that you're doing. We want to give you an opportunity to weigh in on some of the things that we've talked about, especially in the last 7 to 10 days or so on the podcast. It's been just a whirlwind of activity here. You know, the budget, is the government going to fall? Of course, the announcement of the proposed memorandum, of course, with pipelines, and on it goes, just to get some sort of an idea as to what's happening in this country right now. And we really do see some feedback, which is what I've always wanted to do here on the podcast. I want a couple of notes here that I'll read to you. That's up on the screen right now. We'll start with Simone Camacho, who writes, "Congratulations on the 40K subscribers. Thank you for your podcast. They always make me see things in a more positive way. The Canadian news media has a way of twisting things and shedding gloom on news that otherwise appears to be positive to me. Our Prime Minister is trying to strengthen Canada, but our news media always seem to downplay every move that he makes. You always seem to see things the same way as I do and thousands of other Canadians who are hoping that Canada is able to rebuild and become less dependent." Thank you for the kind words, Simone. And I've talked about the media and their role in this situation, and we have to, I think, put this in context. And I understand the frustration, Simone. The reality here is, as we say, the media are humans too. And they have influences, and I'm concerned, and I think Canadians should be concerned about some of the conglomeration of media these days. An awful lot of newspapers, television stations, radio stations that are left doing this sort of thing, usually owned by single owners now, and oftentimes speak with one voice. And my experience is a lot of them do have an editorial way of thinking. And so, the Sun newspapers, the Post newspapers, all of these things, all owned by, that one's owned by an American conglomerate, which I find disturbing as a Canadian. It's all going to be through that filter. So this is one of the reasons why we do what we do here, to try to give you the unvarnished truth and let you make up your mind about this, because I think it's so important, and we do appreciate those comments. Bill, fantastic, from A. Dumb says, fantastic, he makes my day every day. Well, thank you. This makes my day, too. For those that know my background, of course, I was in broadcasting for about 50 years, and each and every day it was a thrill to get into work and do what I do. And now in the podcast world, we're able to continue to do that work. And I feel, especially because of the vehicle that we're using here, a much more direct link between you and me through the podcast. Of course, we can have these one-to-one conversations and in-depth conversations with guests that we may bring on, or with you back and forth with some of the comments. And not always able to do that during the radio days, and time constraints and other things that were going on in the radio business themselves. This is a little more free form, and it's enjoyable. And I'm glad that you're enjoying it and getting into what we're doing here too. Let's bring in, get me Carmen's comment. Yeah, the G20, this is from Carmen Harper. "The G20 has been a highlight for me. Canada with a competent leader. I felt proud. Carney won over a room of conservatives in Alberta. His speech here was really good." And that's, thank you so much, Carmen, again, for the kind words. That's one of the things that we need to stick on. I do not want to suggest for a second that we look at what's going on these days through rose-colored glasses. Oh, everything's going to be just fine. There are some real challenges here, and we have to talk about those, but we also have to acknowledge when we score some points here. Joshua Chapman says, hey, Bill, how do you think the Conservatives feel about Alberta and the PM being on good terms? I know Poilievre's not happy about it, nor is Andrew Scheer and some of the other people that have spoken about this. As a matter of fact, even some of the things that Danielle Smith agreed to in this memorandum of understanding for this proposed pipeline, are things that Poilievre has been dead set against. So, I mean, this is it seems to me in a lot of ways that Poilievre seems to be less and less significant on this national scene here. I mean, if Danielle Smith and the people of Alberta and her party in Alberta can develop a strong relationship with the federal government, that's only a good thing. And not just for Alberta, but I think it's a good thing for everybody. Lady Heather's Lair says, just realized you were having a live stream, Bill. Well, welcome aboard. Good to have you with us. Just a Friday evening to get you kicked off here on the weekend, I guess. By the way, since we're doing live stream today, a special shout out to our American friends and listeners and viewers. We do have a lot of them, and this is their Thanksgiving weekend. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you south of the border. We've talked about some of the problems that you guys are facing these days. We'll continue to do that on the podcast. Robin says, years ago, before our free trade with the U.S., there was a law that stated that once a corporation got to a certain size and made so much money, they had to sell part of the company. That is still a concern and a consideration here. And you're right, Robin, we need a modern version of this. There are things that have been put in place and parameters. We use the term guardrails on the podcast an awful lot of the time. But every now and then, you're absolutely right. Governments have to re-look at this and say, does this need some touching up? Is it still relevant? Things are happening. I mean, there were broadcasting rules and rules about communication strategies and everything. And then along came the internet, and most of those rules didn't apply. And it took government so long to catch up. And we can't afford to have that happen. We need governments that are forward thinking. Lady Heather Zlair says PP will complain about anything that he and his party are trying to make some ground on. Yeah, we've seen that happen too. His party doesn't seem to accomplish much these days, do they? Thank you, Lady Heather, for the comment. Let me talk a little bit about what's happening with some of the comments that we're getting here. Sally, hey, Sally, thank you for being with us. Sally Feschuk says, hey, all greetings from SN. And what we want to do here is give you that opportunity in that forum to talk about some of these things. I love the constant feedback, and I love the initial feedback, and the immediate feedback on some of the issues. It's really, really difficult to try to get a hold on what's going on, because you're getting information coming at you from all different sides, and some of it biased, some of it not, which is one of the reasons why. And I just want to take a second here to talk about a note I got the other day from somebody that says, but basically it's my sign off: stay in touch and stay informed. Stay informed is one of the key parts of this, because we can be inundated with false information, misinformation, outright lies in some situations. And the best defense against that is to be informed. So you can look at that and say, no, that's simply not true. That's not what that person said. That's not what happened that particular date. But if you don't know, it's much easier for you to get sucked in by some of the falsehoods. We had some stories the other day, and I was just talking to one individual that was trying to talk about what was happening, and Mark Carney is our prime minister, and said, yeah, well, he really screwed up Brexit for the Brits. He was not involved in that. He was the governor of the Bank of England at the time that Brexit was voted on, but that was a referendum by the British people, by the UK. It had nothing to do with the Bank of the UK and the Bank of England. As a matter of fact, Carney, in that role, was actually credited for getting England back on their feet, because there was, as you might expect, a huge amount of turmoil after that Brexit vote, and the economy was tanking, and it took a steady hand and some foresight and some economic knowledge and expertise, and that's where Mark Carney stepped in. He probably saved the UK from what could have been a disastrous situation. Although there's an argument to be made it was a disastrous situation anyway because of the vote. Anyway, excuse me. By the way, again, the cough just reminded me. Of course, I've been down and out for the last couple of days with one of these nasty head colds. I'm characterized it as a man cold, and you guys know what that's like, right? It's just, you're on death's door, or at least you feel like you are anyway. But many of you did get in touch with us and offered some solutions or some home remedies or whatever the case might be. I didn't try them all, but I appreciate the suggestions, and I'm back on my feet now, and we're starting to recover. So we do thank you for that input, too. Sue Q 7 Odd says, love your podcast. You make it easy to understand with all that's going on. You certainly make us feel good to be Canadian. Well, we should feel good about being Canadians. You sure make me informed, proud of our PM. And I think we can be proud of Mark Carney and the job that he's done in such a short period of time. He has put us on the map, and he has put us back on the world stage. Let me see. Pure Advice Hoser here says, "Hey, Bill, bring that one back up. Glad to be listening. I'll reflect the sentiment. PP is nothing but a division and deceit. I'm glad MC is in charge and that he's helping the province to realize that we are all Canadian." Thank you so much for the kind words and for the vision here. And you know what? It's about time that we started feeling better about this. The Canada is broken, doom and gloom. We're going to hell in a handcart. First of all, it's not true. There's a lot going on here that we should be proud about, and we need to hear from people that are going to give us that attitude too. Nona says, "Trump, we don't need anything from Canada. Carney, who cares? PP, blah blah blah." I like that comment, by the way. Thank you for the comment. I know there were some people that tried to vilify, Mark Carney for saying, who cares? But I think the sense of it was, and the message he was trying to impart here was, we're not going to bend our knee every time Donald Trump opens his mouth. Who cares? We'll get it done when it's going to be good for Canada. And he's told us that from day one. Lady Heather Layer says, the Bill Kelly podcast, and we should stop saying sorry all the time. That's Canadian, though, isn't it? Sorry, not sorry, or whatever the situation might be. But you're right. We need to be loud and proud from time to time about just what we are as Canadians and the contributions that we're making. 2300 Battlefield says, "Hey, Bill, my father's name is also Bill, and he also worked in radio for decades. Well, what do you think of the media now in Canada? Would you ever work for them?" It's different. Let me put it that way. And the fact that, there were so many conglomerates that are owning it right now. And I don't want to get overly cynical, though, about, what's going on these days. But it's not run by broadcasters. It's run by bean counters. It's all about bottom line. You've got these huge conglomerates that buy a whole, series of radio stations. And it's sometimes economically feasible. Okay, fire that one, shut that one down, and that'll be a tax write-off for us. They're not concerned. They all, when they get their licenses, they all promise to serve the community, blah, 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 blah. But it's really about their bottom line. And if their bottom line is going to be adversely affected, they'll do anything and say anything. As the classic example was the radio station I worked at in Hamilton, CHML, just shut down altogether. This was a legendary radio station, a heritage radio station. They just shut the lights out and said no more. That's terrible. And that's happening in other cities and towns too. And it's not good for public information, but that's corporate decisions. And that's what happens when you've got people way up the corporate ladder in some other city making decisions about what should be happening there. Carmen Harper says, "Creators are selling merch that says, who cares?" I'm not surprised by that. Didn't hurt Carney the way PP hoped that it would. Because I think it reflects, I think the pride that we're feeling these days. Robin Art says, "I love that comment from our PM too. Who cares?" It's that, what? We don't need to lean on you guys, okay? Meaning the Americans. And we're developing our own personality. And actually, I shouldn't say that. We're expressing our own personality. It's already there. And we don't need to stand in the shadows, and we don't have to take a second spot to anybody because of what we are all about and what we can offer to the world. And we didn't always do a very good job of selling ourselves. And I think our Prime Minister is doing that now. Everybody in the world, from the G7 to NATO to the G20 that the Prime Minister just attended last weekend, all of them understand that there's a lot of concern, a lot of challenges going on globally, economically, militarily, politically, and we're looking for people that have got ideas, and we're looking for people that can offer leadership. And right now, Mark Carney is offering that, and people around the world are taking notice, and that's kind of neat. That our Prime Minister, is the one that is being recognized and being listened to with some of the suggestions and some of the talks that he's saying. Whether it's at the G20 as he did last weekend or the United Nations as he did just a few weeks ago too. Lady Heather Layer says, the Bill Kelly podcast, what do you think about Chrétien's recent interview? He's a feisty guy, isn't he? This is a guy that won a number of majority governments. I think he still holds the record for the number of majority governments. He's always been very opinionated. He's a true liberal. I can only extrapolate from what he said over the last little while. I'm not so sure he was crazy about the way that Justin Trudeau took the party too far to the left, and because I agree with that assessment. Chrétien was a middle-of-the-road guy, and he hired great people. Smart people, smart leaders hire people that are as smart or smarter than them because there's important decisions to be made. And Chrétien brought along guys like Paul Martin and John Manley and so many other very intelligent people that really put Canada on the track. And he's got a right to state his opinions on where we should be going right now. And he should be listened to. And I hope he is. People like that have got a lot to give. North American society is one of the few societies that does not pay attention to their elders. And I think we should probably do that, especially people like Chrétien. Nona says, Carney moves quietly. The book, The Art of War, is how I see Carney moving. There's a strategy to what he's doing, isn't there, Nona? There really is. And you can see that developing. He doesn't get flustered too easily. He's, total vision on where he needs to go here. And I think it's encouraging, and I think it gives us more confidence. The Wiggertree says, who cares what happens when you realize you cannot win anything fair against a sum-zero negotiator? And that's part of the problem, isn't it? Do you suck up to a guy like Trump and his team there simply because we got to get a deal? No, you don't. We'll survive and we'll get the best possible deal for Canada. And it's not on the table yet, as the Prime Minister has told us. Joanne says G19 was a super success. It was hopeful to see all the leaders working together. Taco was not missed. PP should visit Taco. He's certainly borrowing from his playbook, isn't he? Time and time again. I've seen some of the memes, I'm sure you guys have, on some of the side of the platforms these days, of something Trump says and there's Poilievre repeating it a couple of weeks later, almost word for word, verbatim. And of course, some of the policies and some of the approaches are really just pages from the MAGA playbook too. And that's one of the concerns I think we need to have here. But that comes back to what I was saying earlier about stay informed, right? Be aware of what's going on and put things in the proper context. Robin says, it's been a year since Trump took office. I watched a video about how far we have come in that year. Very proud to be a Canadian. I think we're seeing a lot of that pride. And there was that instant gratification, wasn't there, Robin? Right off the bat, elbows up and Canadian pride. I mean, the timing of that was spectacular. It was just around the time of the Four Nations hockey tournament, which we won, of course, beat the United States. And I think that gave us time to and an opportunity to kind of beat our chest just a little bit. And nothing wrong with doing that, is there? Christine Walsh. Hey, Christine, thanks for being with us. Says, did you listen to Elizabeth May yesterday? She had a couple of interviews. I seriously hope that the tankers, she's talking about the tanker ban that's in place right now, stay out of the strait. And I get where you're coming from on this. And I know that, Premier Eby from British Columbia has expressed the same sort of thing, as have a number of the First Nations leaders out there. That's what the discussion is going to be about. It's okay. What are the contentious points? Let's talk about those. And, nobody's rushing through this and just, bowling in here and say, this is the way it's going to be. What a memorandum of understanding simply means is, okay, these are the parameters. Here's what we want to go. How can we get there? And how do we bring people on side? And let's talk about the differences or the challenges that are faced and how we can solve those. They're a long, long way from getting anything done here. But the fact that they're on the same page and want to move in that direction is encouraging. Shakira says, finally, I catch this podcast live. I've been watching clips for ages. I'm a big fan. Continue to do that. We like doing the live casts, and we will do these on a more regular basis. But keep going with the ones that you can pick up on YouTube as well. That's always interesting. Owen Thomas, Bill Kelly, populism rises when people feel the government and the public systems are failing the people. And that's what happens. And the Trumpism and the MAGA thing in the States, I think, is a great example of that. When people are of the mind that the government's not listening to them and not working in their best interest, they start looking for alternatives. And the problem is you can get so wrapped up in your frustration that sometimes we as a public, and I'm talking about voters, maybe don't always make the right decision. It's too easy when you're really ticked off about something to simply go for what looks like a quick solution. And we have to realize sometimes there are no quick solutions. Yummy Stacey says, Carney so far has projected true leadership, stewardship. We so desperately needed. The world needs it, but certainly Canada did, I think, at that particular time too. And I agree with you. Lady Heather Lyre says, the Bill Kelly podcast, we should thank Mike Myers for making the elbows up expression very popular, even though it didn't originate with him. Yeah, but, those appearances he made on Saturday Night Live just around that time, and, of course, even at the end of the show, when the whole cast is on stage there saying goodbye, Mike always had a Canadian T-shirt on, or a Molson Canadian or Canadian Tire shirt or something, and the elbows up image. And it was kind of getting the message across and keeping the message out there. His heart was really in it, and that was kind of neat to see. Chris, great to have you with us here on the live chat, Chris. I was talking to some Aussies who said Canada is so important for democracy worldwide. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'm hearing the same sort of thing, too, from some of our listeners from other countries that are saying that, there's a different approach and there's a different perception, I think, of Canada. with Mark Carney in charge over the last little while, that all of a sudden people are listening to what Canada's saying. We're not just somebody who was also in attendance at meetings. Our leader, our prime minister, is front and center in all of these meetings because he has something of worth to say. Adam says, is Jolie leaving? Don't know. Oftentimes, where there's smoke, there's fire. We've heard the rumors that she's looking for a post someplace in France, some diplomatic post. Could be. Here's the thing with politics. When a new person comes in, a new leader, they eventually want their team. And Mark Carney came in, of course, at very short notice and became the leader of the party. And, of course, not too long after that, the general election. And, he's got a number of people that he inherited from the Trudeau team. That happens. You don't want to see everybody get wiped out. There are some talented people, some very intelligent people, and some very necessary people left over from that era. And some of them, I think, are doing pretty good jobs in that cabinet. But each and every day, I'm sure that the prime minister is calculating and basically seeing who the players are, who can do what, and he's doing those evaluations of who's available too. I think Jolie's done a pretty good job, by and large. There are a couple of things that people are being critical about, but considering the portfolios in which she's been a part of, she may well think that I can continue and I can work for this prime minister. Not everybody's going to be of that mind. Some of the people that did not get included in the cabinet the last time, there's always going to be some sour grapes about that, and I understand that. Whether it's Nate Erskine-Smith or others. But Carney wants his team, just as any other person who becomes prime minister would want his team, the people that you can trust. And I think he's making a list and checking it twice, if I can be seasonal about the comment there. Chris says, I would like Jolie. It would be sad to see her go. And I agree. She's I don't know if if you want to rate people as all-stars and superstars, she's very good and very capable. Let me put it that way. And I think that's what you need at this stage right now. You want some people that are going to be superstars, and we've seen that happen in past governments. There's always going to be one or two people in the cabinet that really just kind of rise above. And I don't know that we've seen those yet. Champagne as a finance minister, too early to tell. Dominic LeBlanc is certainly the superstar in this cabinet so far. But I think others have risen to the cause, too. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Mélanie Joly. Of course, if she were to leave, that's another by-election, and that's always a concern, too, isn't it? Lady Heather's Lair, back with us again, the Bill Kelly podcast. That ambassador thought we were meddling with that ad. I took Todd Maffin's take on that. That's how many times the USA has meddled in our affairs. Constantly. They continue to do that. And by the way, I mean, yeah, we've talked about the American ambassador to Canada sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong. He's not a diplomat. A diplomat by nature is somebody who is supposed to be the bridge between his government and the city or the country in which he's appointed. All this guy has done is stir up crap, and that's his way, which I guess is not surprising given the fact that he's representing Donald Trump. You have to tolerate that. He's not going to leave. We can boot him out, but I mean, that's going to cause a whole lot of turmoil too, isn't it? And Trump's never going to get rid of him because he figures, hey, if he's stirring up crap in Canada, that's a good thing. Trump just loves turmoil. He just loves to antagonize people. And thinks that that in his own unique, perverse way, that he's getting the better of them when he does that. And I think Mark Carney has proven over the last number of months he's not going to take the bait, and he's not going to get sucked into that sort of thing. And that's good. That's, I think, one of the other things that makes us proud to have him as our leader. The Orgatory says Trump is a functioning illiterate that cannot relate to cause and effect. Also, he can't read a balance sheet. I don't know that he ever has. That's one of the fallacies, isn't it, about Donald Trump, that he's this, immensely successful businessman. He's failed at everything. Whether it's Trump Steaks, Trump's University, a number of real estate deals. He got lots and lots of money from his daddy, and he blew that, and he was essentially bankrupt at one point, although he never would admit it, which is one of the things that I think we'd like to get some answers to, is that now famous trip to Moscow years and years ago, and whatever happened during that trip. But he came back, and all of a sudden he had money. Did he make a deal with Putin? Well, we can speculate about that. We may never know the answer. But if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, right? Yves Duseka says, I saw an interview with Jolie, and she was asked if she wanted a job in France. She said she was not interested in leaving Canada. I hope so. I hope she does stay, because, as I say, I think she's got something to offer to this government, to this cabinet. She's had a couple of different portfolios in a short period of time. But again, that's the prime minister, I think, looking for the strengths and weaknesses of each one of the individuals that he's got in this cabinet right now. And that's within the prime minister's purview to do that. Battlefield says, Bill, is there an update on petition E6679? I got a lot of my family and friends to sign it. If not, what can we do to stop the lying in Canada? I haven't heard anything in the last couple of days. My understanding is, as you say, they have more than enough signatures to present it to the Parliament. Now, what the Parliament does with it after that, and I think I talked about this on one of the podcasts a week or two ago, it's really up to the Parliament after that. They can accept it. They can receive it. That's a phrase that they use in politics. Let's receive that information, which basically means, put it in that blue box over there and never do anything about it. Or they can act on it, and they can say, okay, let's have a referendum or let's draft legislation. It's totally up to them as to how they want to proceed from there. And I'll be watching. I share your interest in this. As I mentioned, I think the concept of that petition is well-earned and well-intentioned. Getting it done is going to be very, very difficult. Because you're going to have to drag MPs kicking and screaming into a process like that. Politicians, by and large, don't like accountability. They kind of like to say, look, we know what we're doing. Just leave it to us, and we'll figure things out, which is not always the best advice. Nona says, I've wondered if PP is a graduate of Trump University. Well, he certainly drank the Kool-Aid, didn't he? That seems to be his modus operandi. To simply look at this. And I can see the strategists that are involved behind Poilievre looking at the success that Donald Trump's had. I mean, the guy's been elected twice in the United States, and he's outrageous. He's irreverent. He's ignorant, I think, in so many different ways. Nonetheless, because of the fact that he's won two, I'm sure there are people in the Conservative caucus and in the Conservative hierarchy that are saying, hey, do what he did, because that got him elected. I like to think Canada's different. As a matter of fact, I know Canada's different. And I was gratified to see the election results from this earlier this year that pretty much indicated that we're not going to bite into that apple, no matter what Trump says, that we can be better than that. And we know we can be better than that in this country. May 24M says, love this podcast and the people who are offering positive comments about our democracy. I no longer trust our media. They seem to get pleasure from knocking down the PM and love promoting Pierre. I noticed that too. And again, I understand it's the job of the media to be critical. And I'm not suggesting that that they always have a narrow out for the prime minister, but they do seem to, for some reason, think Poilievre is quotable. It seems every time there's something going on, whether it's in Ottawa or something to do with one of the provinces, somebody sticks a microphone in front of Pierre Poilievre and says, "What do you think about this?" And that's dangerous to me, because the guy, I don't think, has a whole lot to offer in his attitudes. Certainly not when it comes to policy. This is a guy who has risen to the point he's at in politics on slogans. There's not a lot of insight into what he's offering these days. It seems to me to be a rather mean-spirited individual that doesn't seem to like the media, doesn't seem to like a lot of people. These acerbic comments, I don't think, is what leadership is all about. Thankfully, the Canadian public seems to agree with that so far. Mary says, Bill, what do you make of Poilievre's review in January? Do you think he'll remain party leader after the recent comments? Probably. The short answer is, yeah, he'll probably still be there for a couple of things. First of all, there's nobody really chomping at the bit to take his place these days. Secondly, it's going to be held in Calgary, and it's apparently one of these votes that's going to be with the people that are there. What you don't realize, and this is something I brought up in the podcast, but I'll remind people that are watching our live stream now, is the same weekend that leadership review is going on in Calgary, the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party is having a convention, some sort of a meeting here in Ontario, Doug Ford's group, in other words, which tells me that an awful lot of the Ontario conservatives, PCs, conservatives, whichever you want to call them, whichever brand, may just take a pass on the Poilievre thing altogether, and stay here in Ontario and revel in Doug Ford and what's going on here in Ontario with the provincial government. So I think the people that are going to show up for that vote for Poilievre are probably going to be mostly people that are core supporters of the Maple MAGA movement anyway. So as to how that's going to play out and what's going to happen after that, well, who knows? But I don't think you're going to see any massive sea change. Although, as we've said on the podcast many, many times, the only thing that's predictable about Canadian politics is that it's unpredictable. So, anything can happen, I suppose. But I don't see the sand shifting a whole lot under Poilievre right now. But at the same time, I don't see a whole lot of Canadians gravitating to this guy. The recent polling we saw when it came to leadership of this country during these rather trying times the Liberals still have a slight lead. I think it's about 4 or 5 points now over the Conservatives. But Carney has, I think, a 24-point lead over Poilievre when it comes to who would you prefer as prime minister. And that's interesting. And I know that people are going to say, yeah, well, Poilievre had a 22-point lead on Justin Trudeau. That was then. This is now. This is the guy who's in charge right now. And it's a fresh face and it's a fresh set of policies. And I think Canadians are making their judgments based on that. So anyway, it's all going to be in the wash as to how this is going to play out. But what I'm really happy about is the way that you and I, and I think a lot more Canadians than usual, than maybe we've expected, are starting to become interested in this and taking a deeper interest in what's going on in the country. As we've said on the podcast many, many times, people that say, oh, I don't pay attention to politics. I don't really care about it. You have to care about it. This is our country. These are your taxes. This is what they're going to do with your communities, with our cities, with our country. And I find that an awful lot of the people that say they don't care about it, the first ones that start whining and complaining about it when things aren't going the way that they think they should. Get involved. Get involved. Vote is obviously, but pay attention to what's going on, too. Nona says, I would love to see Bill, Claus, Guard, The Leaf, and Eager Beaver and other Canadians do a live show together. A lot of good people doing this. And thank you for the kind words. And I know a lot of the guys that you're talking about here and the work that they're doing. And it's really fascinating to see. And I congratulate all of them. As I said just the other day when I was on the podcast, that I think what we need to do here is I don't look at the other people that are doing this sort of thing, and there's a lot of them, by the way. We're not competitors. We're all on the same team here. We're talking about issues with you, and we're doing exactly what we can do to engender this feedback and this interest in what's happening for politics these days. And the more the merrier. The more concern we have, the more conversations we have. I think the better the country is going to be as a result. Emotion says, I think Bill is more productive and impactful as a Canadian YouTuber than a politician. Only 9-10 years, I guess, I did in politics. I will tell you, though, I'm just about to sign off here. I have been asked a number of times, even when I left politics, that was some years ago now, would I consider going back into it? First answer is no. But one of the reasons why is because I think doing what I'm doing here gives me a better opportunity to reach more people. If you're in politics, and I applaud anybody that wants to take the dive in and offer themselves for public service in politics. But whether you're on a city council, whether you're a member of the Ontario legislature or the BC legislature, whatever, or a member of the federal government, you're only one vote. And that's an important vote. And they have huge responsibilities. But doing what I'm doing now on this platform gives me an opportunity to reach a whole lot more people. And to use my phrase that I'm going to lay on you again in just a couple of seconds, to keep people in touch and to keep them thinking about what's going on with the issues. Anyway, we're kind of short on time here. And as I say, my doctor is telling me I got to watch what my throat is doing these days. And this will be the third podcast that we've done today. So I'm going to back off just a little bit and going back to the lemon tea in just a couple of seconds. Okay, it's Friday night. Maybe I'll put a little something extra in the lemon tea, okay? I think I'm allowed, right, after Friday night. But we do appreciate that. And thank you again so much to everybody who has shown their support by subscribing to the podcast. We are very, very grateful for this. And we really do appreciate the support. And keep it coming. If you're new to the podcast, great to have you on board. We've seen some of the comments here from some people that are just jumping on side for the first time. Check us out on YouTube, of course. And we've got them all there in catalog for you to catch up. And you can look at some of the back issues on that and get an idea as to where we are in some of these key issues. But we'll be doing this again. Watch us on YouTube. And we'll be in touch with another that opportunity, I think, for a live stream in just a few days, probably in the next week or so, okay? Until next time, I'm Bill Kelly. Stay in touch and stay informed.
Bill Kelly Podcast brought to you by Wizen's Law, personal injury lawyers. Listen, you didn't choose to get injured, but you can choose the right lawyer. Wizen's Law, 905-522-1102 or wizenslaw.com.